Bonsoir, merci d'être là et merci surtout à Susanne d'avoir accepté cette invitation qui avait été... c'était une première fois, ça devait être il y a quelques mois déjà, et puis Susanne était tombée malade à ce moment-là, donc voilà, c'est aujourd'hui qu'elle est là finalement avec nous. Je vais brièvement, comme je fais d'habitude, une petite introduction pour présenter le travail de l'invité. Donc Susanne Kennedy a fait des études de théâtre et de mise en scène d'abord en Allemagne et puis après à Amsterdam. Elle a commencé par monter des textes d'Elfriede Jelinek et de Sarah Kane. Le premier spectacle qui l'a fait connaître, c'était une adaptation d'On achève bien les chevaux, donc ce marathon de danse qu'elle avait réadapté à sa façon. Et il y a eu toute une succession. Moi, j'ai découvert personnellement son travail en 2017, un spectacle qui était montré aux Amandiers de Nanterre, à l'époque où Philippe Kahn dirigeait les Amandiers. Et c'était un spectacle tiré d'un film de Rainer Werner Fassbinder. Et donc cette adaptation qui s'appelait Warum läuft er amok? Sorry for the pronunciation. Ce spectacle, donc pour moi, avait été une grosse révélation. C'était incompréhensible pour moi que son travail n'était pas montré jusqu'à présent en France. Et donc j'avais commencé à me confronter à ces dispositifs-là artificiels qui sont la caractéristique de son travail. Et on a découvert bien plus tard en France un spectacle qui s'appelait Angela. Il y a eu 2 spectacles qui ont été montés au Festival d'automne il y a 2 ans de cela. On a découvert d'abord Angela, A Strange Loop, et puis après il y a eu cette adaptation absolument extraordinaire de Einstein on the Beach qu'elle s'est réappropriée d'une manière tout à fait atypique avec une scène rotative. Et j'aimerais quand même juste essayer d'évoquer un peu dans son travail la circulation des thématiques qui sont toujours dans un monde très artificialisé, très artificiel, avec, où la technologie vient se fondre dans la réalité. On ne sait plus en général dans les personnages qu'elle met en scène à quel point on est dans une matrice intérieure, dans un mental de ces personnages, parce qu'il y a un dispositif très particulier dans ses créations, qui a un rapport au son, justement, c'est pour ça que je l'ai invité, bien entendu, qui a un rapport avec le son désynchronisé, c'est-à-dire qu'il n'y a aucun son ou aucune voix qui est en temps réel, tout est préenregistré en règle générale dans un studio au préalable, et qui crée un décalage comme ça entre des corps sur scène, qui sont également avec un masque en latex, qui leur donne une espèce de déréalisation totale. Et en même temps, c'est à travers ce dispositif-là qu'on aborde quelque chose d'une réalité qui serait une réalité, a virtual reality that would be kind of same than the daily reality, but transposed into a virtual world that is really actually the envelope of our psyche, of our mind. And I don't know if I should speak already in English, so maybe I will.
You are.
Yeah, I am. Okay, let's go. It's a bit difficult at the beginning. So it's this notion that is in all your pieces of something that is often connected to the derealization of the human being into something that is more real. It's difficult to speak about it in English. How am I gonna say it? It's about a reality that is virtual as an algorithm that will be our own specific reality that is transferred into a matrix that is the mind and the psyche and the emotions. And most of your characters are female characters with confronted to quite often a disease or death. And how do you have a conversation with the state of mind in extreme situations of life, and how the daily life connect with something very deep. How would you describe it yourself?
Okay,
Sorry.
jump right in.
Yeah. No, but it's more like more about like the connection with the reality and the distortion of reality.
So it's this idea that I think you could say maybe we all walk around with a kind of headset, you know? We're talking about virtual reality and we're thinking of this kind of specific kind of thing that you can put a headset on and then you're in the world. But our mind, our eyes, I think are our own kind of headset. Mm-hmm. We just don't realize it. We think this is reality, but we don't notice that we actually perceive it in a very specific way. And reality, well, if we jump right into it, then I would say is a kind of shared hallucination in a way.
Right, exactly.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So, and that's something that I'm trying to explore with these pieces in a way to ask these very, very basic questions. What is reality? And then who am I? So when an actor comes on stage, there are already like 1,000 questions. Just, you know, he comes from, or she comes from the side of the stage, walking into the middle, sitting down. Like everything is already in that, because it's like, who am I? Who am I when I open my mouth? What comes out of my mouth? Who is this person who is speaking those words? Are they mine? Mm-hmm. Did I learn them by heart? You know, there's like a whole universe of questions behind mm-hmm. that I often miss in theater, I would say, and also, but specifically in theater, because you look at human beings, it's like you have this frame and you put a human being inside of it, then all these questions you can ask about this other stage we're on all the time, which is life in a way. So I think life imitates theater and not mm-hmm. the other way around in a way. Right. Yes. Mm-hmm. So that's what I try to dissect or to dive into, and taking all these conventions that we usually have in theater apart and diving into each, like the voice and the face and the gesture, just one hand gesture. What is it? What does it mean? Where does it take us? Mm-hmm. It's a kind of trip that you can go into. And yeah, sort of ask these questions, and then you come back to I mean, people have asked these questions forever. Mm-hmm. You know, you come back to Plato's cave, and every religion has it in at its heart. It's the illusion, the Maya. So I really like Philip K. Dick. I don't know if you're familiar with with his work, but he said he once had a kind of he had these visions that he documented, revelations, and he once said that like his reality completely sort of fell to pieces, and he described it as it was as if I was watching a kind of theater. And people are on stage and playing their roles, and suddenly the curtain comes down, and you see everyone struggling to pull the curtain up, but you see that there's the director, and these are the props and the technicians, and everybody tries to hide it. But that's what I saw, he said. I saw the veil coming down of reality.
Like the backstage.
Yes, which has its own veil again. Yeah, so you keep... If you tear one veil down, I don't think you can ever...
It's endless.
Yes, it's endless, exactly. Right. So I like that image. That's, for me, is also the heart of theater in a way that goes very deep into these questions. Yeah.
Right. And yeah, you talked about like the collective hallucination, and that's what I, wrote also, because... the reality is a construction, and it's constructed because of social responsibilities and stuff like that in our daily life, because it's there's not really a free will. We are conditioned by everything outside us. And so what I like about your work, and what I'm fascinated like you about, like the fact that this constructed reality could be could be also like some kind of not an hallucination, because there's what we have in mind sometimes is disconnected from what we live in our daily process of reality. And is the mind what you think and what you go through, your emotions, are they more real than the social reality? And is that the line of tension that you try to manage to put together?
I think the social reality and our feelings, it's a constant feedback loop. So the idea also in Angela, I am Angela, a strange loop. So where does this onion, when you start to peel it, of the self, where do you find a sort of, inner heart that when you start to peel? I don't think it works like this in a way. It's because you are it's very difficult to find yourself, because you are what others say you are, and you perceive yourself in the eyes of the others, and then you think that is me. But there has to be something outside of that, and that's something I'm trying to discover within the pieces I make. So where, I mean, you can go back again to the sort of, the great masters talking about meditation, and you start to lose that sense of the social self or something like that.
Right.
Maybe what you encounter is an emptiness,
Right.
It's not that you go to the
core.
center, this is me. The me starts to disappear, maybe, So, and we're very afraid of that.
Right, because we're in a period of time where the identity becomes almost like a revendication all the time, and you work more on the dissolution of identity into many fragmented identities, where our identity is not the same each day, it's changing. And that's what I'm interested in, of course, in all of your work, is a question of we're multiple identities and not fixed, and we can kind of die and live again and resurrect. And I think that's what I want to go into, to dive into, like one of your first piece with your boyfriend Markus Selg, and you have this question of the reality is unreachable if we just try to grip it as an identity, as something fixed. And so there's this question of dying and resurrect, which was very from the beginning. When did you start to explore this kind of thematics of like dying and resurrect and all this kind of cycle?
When did I start? Yeah, I think so. I had worked before I got together with Markus Selg, who's a visual artist. We started working together in 2016. And before that, I had my own trajectory where I did my own work with more a classic theater form, I would say. And we got together, and I think we brought our universes together. And he... I was very much closed before that, I think. So, Warum läuft Herr R amok was still like, and I showed people on stage who could not escape. They were trapped forever. and I remember with Herr R, I was like, okay, he kills everyone at the end, and he kills himself, and there's like no catharsis, nothing. It's just like, look at them. This is life. This is awful. We're all just puppets, and in the end we're dead. And then I thought, but is this how I see life? I'm following this form on stage, but I don't even know if this is what I believe. So I added a kind of little dance at the end. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah,
this
I remember.
very, very old lady.
Yeah.
And she danced to Eric Clapton, and it was a kind of little freedom at the end, because I knew I had to get out of that somehow, but I didn't know how. And then when Markus and I got together and started working together, I discovered a new kind of freedom, because he was not so into that kind of life is terrible and we're all trapped.
the dead end.
Yeah. And I had my daughter, you know, so
it opened a new gate.
Yeah. What do you want to tell your child? That this is, you know, what you show on stage, that we're all doomed? I mean, I don't think you can have a child and then make theater like that. So I had to, even if they would die, I let them come back again and resurrect in a way to open something up, I think. And also the idea that let's have another chance. Maybe we're not just getting this one life. Maybe we have more chances. Who knows?
Right.
Who am I to tell, you know?
It's very obvious in your work. There's this change at some point where most of the pieces, I saw some on videos that you sent and some that I saw for real. And I noticed that there's this point where, especially with Einstein on the beach, opened a new gate of something more lively and more maybe connected to life. And before it was also like, as you say, locked down in a system that is a representation of a theater that is very close to a sitcom, like the daily sitcom. And I'd like to talk about that, and then we'll talk about the sound also, which is very important. But in Angela, for example, Angela is in the middle. I think it's the transition. You know, there's...
Yeah, I think Angela is even, because I had a few pieces that were more a bit like Einstein, but with Angela, I looked back at the past again. So it's true. It goes back to the sitcom character, the trappedness.
Yeah. And at what point did you... Because there's always something a bit disturbing on those days. We'll say cringe about like this feeling of being confronted to something that is unheimlich, because it's a very important part of your work. Would you say that unheimlich is a right term for qualifying your for talking about your work?
Yes, especially about these works that are in a kind of room where you feel trapped, and the German word unheimlich is connected to Heim, so the home. So something that you know very well, where you feel at home, becomes uncanny. So there's a void, there's an abyss underneath the home, the things we think we know, and I think in that sense I think it's really interesting, because that's what I like, that the things we think we know very well suddenly become questionable, you know, as if the floor underneath your feet starts to move. And the things you think, okay, this is me, this is this object, this is what's happening, suddenly start to disintegrate, and you cannot trust your perception or your senses anymore. And that's when something really interesting starts to happen. Right.
I really like the notion of alien also, because alien it's something that is outside. It's something that you can explore, but that is always the alterity. And this is a very strong notion in your work, this notion of something alien, but it's inside you actually. So we're alien for each other, and we're alien to ourselves also. And it's a discovery, a long process in each of your pieces of something that is like discovering this alien side of us. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, absolutely. So that we have not had a real encounter with ourselves. We think we know ourselves. We follow a path through life, like, you know, what is expected of us or what we're expected of ourselves. And then there's this point where we encounter something in ourselves that scares us because we don't want to look at it, you know? But it scares us because maybe it is that self that we try not to see, because it's, you know, it's the point where, I mean, people take drugs for reasons like that, for these kind of encounters. And I think if theater could do that for us, you know, it's kind of trip where you experience something maybe similar. I also think when the idea where theater came from, you know, from rituals and maybe ecstatic kind of mystery religions where people put themselves into a kind of state of being before it was all that the political and the social, but that kind of state of being, and to explore that in order to get to know something that you can't access maybe in everyday life. Yeah.
But still, I mean, then we'll talk about the sound design, and not only, but when you talk about that, it relates also to the question of the satire. It was quite strong in your old works, and slightly it didn't vanish totally, because there's always this part of maybe irony, not cynicism, but maybe some kind of irony of the representation, the setting, something that would be a theater inside the theater, which is inside another theater, as we said earlier. But at some point, when you create Einstein on the Beach, I have the feeling that all of a sudden we enter into the work, and we're not just seeing it from the outside. We're just more active than passive. And usually, like in your pieces, the characters themselves were a bit passive about what was happening to them. They had no interaction. Yeah. And so I'd like to have this
transition. Yeah.
Transition.
Yeah. So it is, as you described, it's these two state of beings with these kind of strange alien characters that seem to be lost, and how do they find themselves? And then there's these pieces where the audience can enter the stage and become a community in a way. So that is that kind of longing for experiencing something together in the same room, going back to that ritualistic idea, and can we make that together in one evening. I still think you can do it when you're in your seat and watching it up there, but of course it's more difficult, because then it's all only in your head, and there you bring your whole body. And you watch the other audience members, you start to know, this woman sitting there, I've seen her before, I encountered her, You become a group on stage. Right. Yes.
So am I right if I'm saying that you used to show individuals on stage, and now it's more like a commune?
I like to do both. So I always like to go back to something very concentrated. It's just this body on stage having this very concentrated gestures. And then going into the open again and inviting the audience, because if you just sometimes have to open your mind again also, and I also have this feeling that my cycle with these suffering women also comes to an end for now. I have to deal with men now, I think. It's so I want to do Faust by Goethe, Okay. So yeah, it's also these classics, and I felt like, okay, a cycle has come to some kind of end with the work, because the work is also, that will come to Paris in December. It's a retrospective of also our work, where different pieces from older works are on stage, but we have this maybe.
Yeah, maybe you can show
a few
elements
photos of the work, where, but it's the artist Xenia who is the artist who shows her retrospective on stage.
She's a character.
She's the character. She's an artist. Yeah. And she puts her work on stage and has different people. She does a casting, which is very similar to the rehearsal, actually, that we were talking about with Nathan Fielder.
Right.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it.
Yes. Yes. So I have a few photos here of, and you see that it's settings.
Okay.
It's a living room.
You're back to the living room setting.
Yes, but then here the audience can come in.
All right.
And you have different alter egos of Xenia. So she does a casting, and suddenly there's someone an actor appears and says, "I'm going to play you,"
Right.
but she doesn't know anything about it. And suddenly these people that she casts seem to know more about her and her life than she does. So the work starts to haunt her. So
Okay.
it's like the work knows more about her than she does, because she has been blind in a way. She has not examined herself. And I was just talking with my friend yesterday that it's kind of interesting, because as an artist, and if you have some kind of success, it becomes very sort of, you get the idea that you know something, you know, that you, because you're so kind of successful, that you that success defines you. It can become your identity, and you don't think you have to examine anymore, because the work is.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
So and here Xenia, she's presenting her work, and but you see all her blind spots, the way she treats people, the way she goes through life, and the work kind of starts to do something to her.
The process is inverted.
Yes, and she suddenly discovers that all the time she's actually dying. We have a death room on stage that you can go inside, also as an audience, and there she lies dying during the whole retrospective. But she's not even aware of that, you know. So it's like your unconscious that also shapes your work then comes and gets you, because you have not actually taken the time, or you never thought it was important enough to really look at yourself, and then it does something to you. And I like the idea that the work knows more about you than you even know about yourself or the work.
And is there a continuity between Xenia and the previous character, like Angela? Is that like the same kind of characters? Because in one of your old piece, there was like the same character performed by different comedians. And so is it like, are you always trying to have the same character with his many identities, her many identities?
So it's that case that I never thought it out like this, but it actually happens. So there was this piece I did in 2017 when I started at Volksbühne, Women in Trouble, which is actually they're all these women in trouble, and she was called Angelina Dream. And this Angelina has come back in Angela. Then I had Hideous Women, where she was called Angel. So it's all kind of angels that seem to walk through these plays in a way. And then there was Jessica, Angela, and now Xenia. And they are all part of the same woman in a way, you know, different parts. Like Jessica was a guru, you know, like she was a shamanistic guru that had a following around her, but also someone with a great blind spot. And both Jessica and Xenia are women who have power and who misuse that power, which I also think we're not talking about enough, because of course in these times of Me Too and everything, we're very concentrated on the men, but then actually looking at women and how they do it in a different way, I thought was interesting, and I wanted to explore.
When you talk about misuse, what do you mean, like misusing?
Yeah, that's
it's a fast question.
Yes, because do they actually? It's of course it's using your power and your possibilities blindly, I would say. So you're not conscious in the way you because other people give you this position. The danger is that also, especially if you're successful, and if you kind of also as a director, I felt that the more successful I got, the less people criticized me.
All right.
Yeah. So because it's what happens. It's
that's a trap.
It's a trap. It is, and you have to either surround yourself with people who still do that, who are not afraid to do it. Or friends, of course, but it's dangerous because you can become so caught up in your own ways, and because you always have people around you who are like, who want to work with you, then that you become entangled in your own world that you shape in a way. And I think both with Jessica and Xenia, this is what happens, and it's kind of interesting to explore that.
I'd be interested to talk about like the construction of before you work on the piece itself, the sound and the voices and all this process that is in a studio. How do you write what is your process of writing what we hear, the dialogues, the sentences, the voiceover sometimes also, because it says sometimes I don't know, words that are very very banal, very daily things, very simple, and in the meantime there's like a very something, an insight of the psyche. How do you construct that, and how do you work with the comedians to pronounce those words on stage?
Yeah. So basically, I use stuff that I encounter all the time. I watch a YouTube video. I hear what people.
You record stuff.
I record
random stuff, or
sometimes, yeah. I read the commentaries under YouTube videos, which are always really the most interesting thing, of course, and also how people. Spell it wrongly and use that again. And then I really like this idea of the hyperlink dramaturgy, that how you click your way through the internet. You go from portal to portal in a way, and that is
serendipity of it.
Yes,
what we call.
And then you suddenly can put things together that you would never have thought would go together, that you have a YouTube commentary next to a Bible text or something like that, and it kind of makes sense. So I just put everything in a kind of document and then see how can I form dialogues from that. But it's very much copy paste all the time. It's not that I sit there and think. Sure. Sometimes I need to think of something to connect the different parts, but I don't sit in front of an empty page and start writing.
Right. So it's very fragmented.
Very fragmented, and I have to connect the fragments. And how I work with the actors is we prepare a kind of composition before, and then in rehearsals press play, and they have to open their mouths and play back the words, basically, But
then the word, do you record it in a
studio?
A studio.
Yeah. And what's always really interesting is that the studio, the sound is so different than how it would sound on stage. So your brain notices that the room doesn't fit with the room that we're in, So there's a disconnect in a way, because the studio sounds very close by and cozy and kind of, that. And then there are people on a big stage, and it also in the studio, they read the text and they have no idea about the context. So they just read their lines, and then we put them together with the as a dialogue, but it's like as if the language is not connected to each other, which makes it feel language becomes something very strange then, yeah.
You never use artificial voices?
Not yet, but that's of course something that's now possible, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
What is your relation to the accelerating technology? And because it's very, we didn't talk about it yet, but it's very strong in your work, like the presence of technology as something that is not used usually in that kind of direction. Usually the technology is more like to show off, you know, and or I don't know, to impress people with the visual, and you extract something visual, but to create something else, to create another state. And I'd like to hear about what is your relation to technology nowadays, not your own computer or whatever, but more like generally what it means to be in an accelerating world.
I think it's exciting. I don't share the kind of fear of it. I mean, it's always good to see different perspectives. I'm really so curious what artificial intelligence. I mean, only over the past year, you've already seen how it explodes, and we start to use it in a way that's still very much, you know, you're like, can we even go deeper with it? How far can we go? I definitely feel like you have to learn how to use it so it doesn't use you. I think that's an important...
Like Xenia with her work.
Yes, always with everything. I mean, it's... you have to be conscious in everything that you do and that you use. Otherwise, you can be used, I guess. But it's not something that I think, okay, I have to learn how to do it. Otherwise, I'm going to be used. But it's like a labyrinth. And the things you can discover hell in the internet, but also heaven. You know, it all depends on.
Yeah, sure. It's neutral. It's the way you use it.
Yes. And human create both. Always. So
yeah, but we still live in a very technocratic world where it's used by people and not only for good reasons. I mean,
sure, but that's with all technology. You will always find it, and we have always, with every technology that came, we were like, okay, what's it going to do to us? And I'm sure it's going to be misused, and people, you know, will. I think it's all. I mean. We are in a kind of science fiction movie in a way, for sure. I mean, this is like
it's beyond even what we can.
It's incredible, and I mean, there's also this talk about when does technology become conscious and that kind of idea. I think at the moment it actually is really interesting because it kind of makes us think, but what's so specific about a human being and the kind of intelligence that we have? Because of course artificial intelligence is then much quicker and much faster and can make all these patterns and come up with something much, but then what the human mind is able to do, I don't think that artificial intelligence, the intelligence is a very
basic,
dry, basic, actually reduced kind of intelligence still, I think. So what happens when you add the mind and creativity? And I don't think that, I don't see how that is at the moment possible or ever in a way. Because the human element is something that is, you cannot compute, you know, in a way. Also that kind of, I don't know, but it makes us think about ourselves in a way that we need to, you know.
I'm talking about that because in Einstein on the Beach, there's this deep presence also of algorithm and like this connection with a very archaic past and very futuristic visions, something very primitive and something very technologic, and there's a use of AI also in Einstein on the Beach at some point where you got all these kind of kitsch pictures but going in a flow like that. I'd like to know about exactly how you constructed this kind of total connection between real humans and, for example, with Markus, who is using mostly the computer to create these videos. How do you connect together to create this kind of background and even the sound background? Sorry, it's a large question, but
yeah, it's very intuitive, I think. So we don't actually even talk that much anymore about it. It's something that grows from, as if you've planted something, seeds somewhere that start to grow over the years and shape into a certain kind of shape that, especially with Einstein, because it was so my first kind of music theater opera in that sense. And like I told you before, I kind of went into it. I did prepare it, but sometimes I didn't even know how do I prepare this. It's also sometimes with preparing, I'm like, can I Google this? I mean, no, really. It's like sometimes I'm like, rhythm. How do I get rhythm? And I'm like so addicted, like we all are, to finding it in the internet, and then you have something that you cannot find. You just have to make it yourself, and it's like you think, but how?
Yeah, but I'm very impressed by the precision of everything. So it seems like you let it flow, but in the meantime, that's a huge. I mean, it was 4 hours. There were like 200 people on stage. I mean, and comment on dit les chèvres en anglais?
Yeah, the goats. Yeah.
The goats. Yeah,
Yeah,
sorry,
yeah.
goats and everything, and the opera itself, the Philip Glass music is very precise, and there's like, you know, and there's almost like a narrative that you introduced into that.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I would say once I go into, I do a lot of preparation. I prepare, like, you know, at least a year, and I don't do many works. I try to do only 1 per year, sometimes 2, but that's maximum. So I have the capacity to go into the rehearsal room and then just be completely in the here and now, and I see every gesture, yes, no, this, that, not that I can do. I can't tell you why, but I have to be then in a space where you get to that kind of precision, because you're like, okay, everything else I'm not seeing, but this, what they're doing here, and I can tell you this gesture, yes, but this, no. Now someone has to sit down, someone else has to stand up. Yeah, it's a feeling in a way, and of course then it is connected to the preparation, that this kind of fractal, the idea of you know, the loops and the fractal component also of the music, that you have pieces that repeat but different, same but different, you know, just kind of, and that that's the work you do in the rehearsal room, but not always consciously in a way. You have to tap into something else, I guess. Yeah.
But I'm talking about that because when we talked about like your earlier pieces, they were kind of, even in terms of sound, they were kind of static and very minimal. I mean, even if there was elements of, and I mean, the more and more you worked with Markus, the more and more screens were. And in Einstein on the Beach, the space was very saturated with a lot of informations and of visual informations, and very rococo almost, and a bit kitschy and everything. Yeah. And I think it's amazing. It's great. But it's funny because when I discovered your work was kind of very I don't know, very dry.
Yes.
Was very dry. So all of a sudden it's like, this kind of generosity in terms of shapes and
absolutely. Yeah, we were afraid that we made it kitsch. Actually, we were before the premiere. Yeah. We're like, oh my God, what did we do? I mean, I actually, in the beginning, I thought, okay, we're just going to show it in Basel. Nobody will see it. And then it was like, oh no, it's going to Wiener Festwochen and then Berlin. And I was like, because I didn't know I didn't know the extent. I mean, of course, we planned it, but when it starts to come all together, and I have no knowledge of what it will all be in the end, and you have this choir, and you have the screens, and you have the, it was borderline kitsch for sure, and we were like a bit afraid that we crossed the...
No, but it's good to embrace it.
Yeah.
To just say, let's go.
Yes, for sure. But, sometimes you have these sleepless nights where you think, where am I going? But, it was something else. But then I thought, after Einstein, I wanted to make Angela.
Right.
Yeah, So
go back to something drier.
Yeah. Oops.
Maybe we have...
Show a bit of Angela.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good to have like a bit of a...
Yeah. Does this hurt?
Yes.
Can you open your mouth for me? Does that hurt?
Yes, it hurts.
Angela?
That's good, baby. Okay. Hopefully this shit stops now, That's great, baby. Oh.
Angela, are you having a seizure right now?
It's crazy what the internet can do.
Can you say, have a nice day?
It's awesome. It's amazing.
Can you say, have a nice day?
Have a nice day.
Angela? 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 Angela?
Get up.
But I'm so tired.
But you were just lying there. We should throw a party, like, that you could get better, get over your illness. Let's laugh and dance. Yeah! Woo! Yeah! Yeah! Woo! Yeah! Yeah! Go, 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 go! Woo!
So that's good to see that now, because to talk about the direction of comedians also, but the soundtrack is really oppressive in that piece, because there's like, now it's kind of a wave of sound that is like invading the space, but there's always during the whole piece some kind of a buzz, and that participate a lot to the atmosphere, the fact that we're closed down also, and how do you juxtapose those elements? The sound, at what point you decide that this specific moment will be, you need like this specific sound that will just create something in the mind of the viewer?
Yeah, I guess we kind of try to find a temperature that is even like a body temperature. I would say a kind of fever, cold fever.
Right.
That
very cold.
Yes, very cold, but also hot at the same time. That and find that specific feeling in the way it sounds. The voices sound, so the kind of passiveness of the voices. So I worked with this the sound designer Richard Janssen that I've worked for many years with, and we also already have a kind of feeling of that kind way of being. And of course, I try to describe it to him, and then we try out things and. If there's the buzz is a kind of background sound, could be as if it's a refrigerator, but a refrigerator that starts to sound in a weird way. It's actually what he did is the kind of air conditioning thing, the ventilator,
right.
As if that's like turning.
Yeah,
turning,
the same sound that is very repetitive.
Yeah.
But there's also the presence of Dimanda Drum.
Yes.
She's a unique musician. She's a great violinist.
Yeah.
I'd like to hear about like your collaboration with also those comedians that are musicians.
Yes.
In Einstein on the Beach, she's also on stage.
Yes.
And you collaborated many times with her. So I'd like to hear more about this collaboration.
Well, 2 times actually. 2 times. Yeah, it's a new element that I definitely want to explore more, because also inviting her to work with us in Angela was like an element I didn't know, because I can't control that, because I don't know how to talk about music. It's not that I know I want this. I just knew I wanted her presence, and her being the only one on stage who is actually, who's actually live. So her sound is live. She plays and also sings, but it's a new kind of way of thinking to incorporate live music on stage that I find very exciting, because it also opens up something again in this kind of very closed in Angela, and in Einstein it was just I encountered her because they asked her to be part of it. I didn't know her, and I was like, okay, I want to work with her again. Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
And for the work, like your next piece that we'll see at the Festival d'Automne, is it again some kind of opera, or like is that more like an installation, a performance? And how would you qualify this specific piece?
The work, you mean?
Yeah, the work.
Yes,
yeah.
yes. It starts as well. It's an installation. It starts. The audience sits in the auditorium, and then moves on stage. It seems to start as a kind of classic theater piece, but it doesn't, because it starts with an interview, a very specific kind of artist interview, like we would sit here.
Right.
She sits there with a journalist, but she's being asked questions I took from interviews, that old Stockhausen interviews also. Then things journalists have asked me about the work, but the whole interview suddenly starts to get very unreal, and then the casting members come on stage, and it morphs into a kind of casting while the journalist is still there.
Maybe that's what's going to happen.
Here, that it opens and we walk into a different world. Yes, that would be nice.
But yeah, the structure of imitating, like we talked earlier about Nathan Fielder and the rehearsal. Maybe we can talk a little further about the concept itself of the rehearsal, because in your work there's this kind of rehearsal of life itself, repeating over and over with the same moves, with the same, and with connection with that's very uncommon in theater. I wonder why. Very connected to the world we live in, with, you said, YouTube, but also like Instagram, the even the characters, they're like really from today's world. And the connection with Nathan Fielder, I don't know if any of you are familiar with his work, is The Rehearsal or The Curse series on Netflix, which is like Nathan Fielder is a comedian, and he's playing the role of a coach of life to people that kind of are have problems in their life, in their either their personal life, or either like a business that doesn't work, and he's trying to find solution. And so, but the solutions are so absurd and so incredibly weird, and but he's doing that with such a seriousness and such an involvement. And I think I can hear you talk about, like, because I say that earlier, and not knowing if you knew Nathan Fielder, but I thought there was something of a connection somehow. And so did you see the rehearsal?
Yes, I did, and I thought it was amazing. I would everybody recommend the series, The Rehearsal. It blows your mind in a way, and it hurts also to watch it. But it is that idea of rehearsing life. And I have this line, and it's from David Lynch, actually, from Inland Empire, where Laura Dern says, "Damn, this sounds like a dialogue from our script." You know, so it's this she says something in apparently real life that sounds like the script they're shooting at the same moment. So that life kind of imitates the script they're doing for a film. And so the realities get completely mixed up, and you kind of get lost within the different levels of reality, which I find very interesting. And also then it actually in the work they're rehearsing life scenes of Xenia. And someone always kind of starts to question, but did this really happen? I don't think it happened like this. And they talk about Xenia's life, and she stands there and is suddenly very confused. Why do these people know what happened to me? That or who sent the script? Who wrote the script, actually? Which is a very interesting question. So who wrote the script? Who wrote this script that we're doing now, actually? In a way, I think we get handed a script as soon as we're born. You know, that we learn by heart very quickly, and then think we invented the script. And it's fascinating. When does the point in your life come where you think, is is this a script that I'm saying, or are these really my own thoughts? And to try and we're back at the kind of curtain moment.
Right.
Yeah.
Or back in Rabbits also, there's this part of Rabbits in Inland Empire.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I thought about Rabbits when I saw for the first time. When I saw Angela, at some point I had this feeling of, like
Yes.
the repetition and the thing very static also.
Yeah.
But this is we touch about the very core of your work, I think, of like the theatralization of a reality that is, Arthur C. Clarke, he said, we can't at some point technology becomes magic because we can identify it. What is the exact? I noticed. I will tell it because it's a great quote of Arthur C. Clarke, which is the sci-fi author of, and I got it somewhere. Really, it's interesting because it says basically at some point you can distinguish the technology from the magic because it became invisible. It's so advanced that it became part of, you don't have a tool or something. It's just part of the whole thing. And what we believe when we believe in magic is just a very advanced technology.
Yes.
And I think it connects with your work in terms of like the spirit behind of like even something connected to a higher level of reality, of perception of reality. But even interrogating the mechanism of faith itself, because do we believe in reality? Do we believe in a God? Is that also a construction?
Yes. Yes.
So it's a mechanism of the perception.
Yeah.
And not only the face itself is a mechanism.
Yeah, and you encounter then things that become really uncomfortable if you start to question them, like with Angela and her sickness, that you think, okay, but how much is her sickness a kind of feedback loop of the YouTube videos she watched of people talking about their sickness and their symptoms, and you watch it often enough and you start to reproduce those symptoms, and then you talk about them on your YouTube channel, telling all the people what new symptoms you have, and it becomes a kind of the feedback loop I was talking about. So they also already have this kind of TikTok tics that and interestingly enough, it seems like women are very perceptive to that. So if someone has shows certain kind of tics, often young girls start to repeat them, but not like consciously I'm going to repeat it, but it seems to be as if our society, and you could talk about the kind of pressure maybe that young women are under, and that symptoms seem to be maybe not a relief of that pressure, but a kind of the symptoms are maybe of something else that's happening to them. So in Angela, I was really curious because we came out of COVID and the question of what happens to someone who's, in their 4 rooms for so long, and she lives a life where I think she's trapped in a way. So something needs to change. She needs to be born again in a way.
She gives birth.
She gives birth. It's a kind of second birth, a baby from the mouth. Yeah. And so it's not about a baby that's being born, but herself in a way. And
she extracts.
Yeah. So and it's also this very classic idea of she has to go deep into the woods and kind of disintegrate and come back to the world changed in a way, but the people around her cannot connect to her anymore because they knew the old one, and something is different. She has changed, and people they react kind of weird about it, and when I wrote it, I thought she comes back and she's completely healed, she's changed, but of course that's not how it works. So it's in small, it's in little things that change, and it's in Angela the evolution she makes is very, very small. So I think it's only at the very end she sits at the fire, which is a plastic fire, so it's not even real. She's still in a plastic world, but there's a smile starting to appear just before and then it goes 3, 2, 1, record. Again, another video about her. But, it can still be real, I think.
Yeah. And would you say it turned into something a bit more hopeful in the end? I mean, like lately, there's more and more hope in your work, or some light somewhere, a little.
Yeah. But I would say Einstein is a lot of light from the beginning. It's not that we have to go through something, or I don't know, but
no,
how
it's
you
very
experience
ecstatic from the beginning.
Yes, exactly. So that is already on a different is a different thing in a way. So it's two different things I explore, but Angela will also get there. She will be in Einstein, at some point, and be part of that. Yeah.
I'm curious, have you seen the original Robert Wilson?
Not live.
Not live?
No, unfortunately not. Have you?
Yeah, because it was played like, I don't know, 10 years back or something like that for one at Théâtre de la Ville, I think. And it's kind of, kind of 80s, this kind of touch video, with the choreography. So I don't know, at some point, did you have the access to, you were free of doing whatever you wanted in terms of direction, or for example, like Robert Wilson, he was dead already, but
Robert Wilson?
Robert Wilson is not?
No.
Oh, sorry.
You killed him.
Sorry, yeah, I just killed him. That's starting to get weird. Sorry, it's another level of reality. No, so Robert Wilson, did he see the piece?
And no. I don't think he saw it. We did change things, and we were like, okay, maybe not ask them and see if they were kind of get through, because I changed texts and put some text in. And then there was once the manager of Robert Wilson came, and there was a bit of but in the end it was okay. So we took the freedom to do a lot of other things. But I have met a lot of people, also one of the dancers who is in the piece, who saw the original and who were like, this is the most amazing thing I ever saw. And I was like encountering so many people that at one point I thought, oh my God, what am I doing? I'm trying to...
It's a lot of pressure when you...
Yes, I didn't know it at the beginning, but when I started working on it and preparing it, it was so many people were like for them it was such an important piece of work. Yeah, it's crazy. If I had known that before, I don't think I would have ever
it's such
started.
A monument. It's
yeah. I was oblivious. So, but sometimes that's good.
And you talked about Faust. You didn't direct it yet. You didn't prepare it yet. Just the concept, the idea. But do you have like already a vision of something a bit in the same process of like wander around, like walking around, or?
No. I don't think it will be immersive. It will be. I think it will be the kind of classic setup. But what I think is so interesting in Faust is also the alchemical aspect of it, the kind of the story of a transformation, and using these kind of, in a way, alchemical medieval images of talking about a psychic transformation that we also used in Angela. But I'm still very much in the beginning. I'm trying to read Faust 2, which is difficult. It's kind of I have to read it and then put it aside again. It's not like, it's not like watching the rehearsal on Netflix. It's like I did it in school, but I feel there's something in it, in these monuments, in these. And before that, I will do Wagner Parzival.
Okay.
Yeah.
An opera.
Yes. So I don't know how that's going to turn out. It's, we'll see.
So finally you're doing opera.
Yeah. I don't know if it's a good idea, actually. We have to see. I have to experience it, and then we can talk about it later,
Okay. So we're going to go see the work. So the dates are in December of
just
Festival
before
d'Automne.
Christmas, I think from 16th till 21st of December.
So it's going to be a great gift.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, thank you, Susanne. Thanks for this talk, and
thank you.
We'll be there. And by the way, if any of you have a question, maybe because I didn't cover the whole, work from Susanne. If you want to ask questions, you're free. If any of you want the mic, don't hesitate. Otherwise, we can have a drink as usual, and maybe it's more, we can be more flexible talking.
Great, thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks, Susanne.